What's up, guys? This is Sim with Vengeance, and I'm back here with a little vlog. I normally don't do these, like, ever. And you know me, sports commentator, franchise builder, whatever you want to call it. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the news, anything like that, you read the newspaper, whether you get your news from the newspaper, social media, TV, wherever you hear say about some stuff that you just happen to walk around or whatever, you would know that the Cubs just won the World Series. And how often are you going to hear that, honestly? Well, you may hear it for a while now, especially if you live in the Chicago, Iowa, Chicago area. You live in Illinois, Iowa, southern Wisconsin, maybe, Indiana. Probably you'll hear it from Cubs fans too, because we have a very big fan base. And I have a friend that's from Australia. He cheers for him too. But the Cubs, man, they won. And I've watched every single game this postseason. I obviously couldn't watch every single game. I've listened or watched every single postseason game. I wasn't able to watch every regular season game because obviously I have a job. But every night I made sure that when the Cubs were on, it was time. I had to watch it, or listen to it somehow, some way, because that was the thing for me. I just could not let that moment just go away, because it's a once. How often are you gonna hear before this thing happened? And I know the Cubs have made the postseason twice in a row now, and this year they ended up winning it. Last year they made it to the NLCS, got swept by the Mets, and I wasn't really skeptical at all. Well, I was. Last year I wasn't as much because we were still young. This year I was like, okay, we're down. We had a 2-1 lead on the Giants. Things were looking bleak, like we were going to go back to Chicago. Then we scored 4 runs in the top of the 9th inning, ended up winning the series in San Francisco, and I'm just like, holy crap, that was amazing. So, and then we fall 2-1 to the Dodgers, who were really good, as Clayton Kershaw and Rich Hill, how good they've been. Kenley Jansen's got reliever of the year. He's a really good closer. Also, I think he's a free agent this year. We were down 2-1 to them, and all of a sudden the bats came alive on a simple bunt play by Ben Zobrist. And that's amazing. And that was just, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Ben Zobrist turned around what had been such a sluggish offense for the Cubs, and I'm just like, holy cow, that actually happened. And the offense just woke up. It was like, holy crap, they're just hitting the ball left and right. And another thing about it was, we ended up winning that series 4-2, and I was in Game 6. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings because obviously I don't have FS1 on my cable provider, because I don't know if FS1 is just kind of just one of those exclusive networks. I don't know what it is, but I don't get FS1, and I'm not too upset about it, because I don't know why you would post the NLCS on FS1 when you have it on Fox and the ALCS as well. Why not have it all on one network instead of having to flip through channels all the goddamn time? Sorry for my language, but that's how I feel about it. And the Cubs were going to the World Series, and they're going to face the Indians, who haven't won a World Series either in about 68 years. And they haven't won one since 1948, and we haven't won one since 1908. So the storyline was just enormous, right? Just all this pressure built up into one series, and both fan bases. And before I go any further, I was Cleveland Indian fans, if you're watching this, you guys have one hell of a team. I gotta give y'all credit there. Kluber is an amazing pitcher. Yeah, he didn't look sharp in Game 7, but let's face it, if you're on short rest twice now, you're not gonna have your best stuff. And the fact that he only gave up 4, just and I'm glad they got him out of there when they did, honestly, because if he was there, stay in there for that rest of the inning, he may have given up a few more. He just did not have his stuff that night because he was just tired. And I'll get to that later on to counteract what I said about Kluber. But the series was in the Indians' favor because, one, they had home field advantage because the American League won the All-Star game, which, honestly, if you want to ask me, it was complete crap. It's still a complete crap system. The All-Star game should not determine home field advantage in the World Series. I've been preaching this since the day it happened. I was not a fan of it. It made it sound like that record that you worked for in the regular season doesn't really apply in the World Series. It does apply for the matter of the fact that in the major portion of the playoffs, like the NLDS, the wild card game, NLCS, stuff like that, that's where it applies. Well, except if you're a wild card team. Because I remember last year the Mets had home field advantage, and the Cubs had 97 wins where the Mets only had 90. And that's the only reason they got home field advantage is because they won the division. And that's fine. I completely understand that logic to some degree. But it made it feel like that the Cubs just didn't... They earned the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And they didn't have that in the World Series because of that All-Star game, which, like I said, it's complete crap. But on to the games, First game, Lester didn't have his best stuff. And Kluber did. He was on fire in game 1. Oh, my God. He could have pitched a complete game if he really, really wanted to. Because the Cubs just did not show up that game. Game 2, Arrieta versus, I think it was Trevor Bauer. Bauer had a lot of injuries so far in the postseason. He only pitched, I think, a combined less than 2 innings so far in the postseason before that start where he just had a bad start too. Arrieta didn't have his best start in that. I'll say he did have a no-hitter up to that point, but he didn't have his best stuff. It wasn't a prototypical no-hitter that he was throwing until he gave up his first hit. So it wasn't. I was happy for Jake Arrieta and his start, but I wasn't. It wasn't his best game. It was one of those games where you would think he would give up 3 or 4 runs, but he didn't, and I'm really happy they won game 2. Game 3, that game was 1-0, I think. That was Hendricks versus Tomlin. Tomlin pitched a hell of a game. Hendricks pitched a hell of a game, and it really came down to the bullpen. And that game could have gone either way because I remember correctly, the Cubs had 2 runners in scoring position, and it went the Indians' way, and that's baseball. And it didn't look too good. Game 4 did not look any better. It's Kluber versus John Lackey. John Lackey pitched like crap. Kluber pitched another great game. He pitched, I think, 6 innings. And then Miller came in and finished off the deal. So then the Indians were down 3-1. I'm kind of analyzing the situations as I go, trying to make this video as quick as possible to analyze the situations. But Lackey didn't have his best stuff. The hitting still wasn't completely there for the Cubs. Their offense really struggled for most of the series until where we're about to get to here. Game 5 was Lester versus Trevor Bauer. And I had a gut feeling. I had an idea the Cubs were going to win that game. And Lester at home is really good. He did pitch a great game, and the Cubs ended up winning that game by 1 run, 3-2. And Aroldis Chapman pitched 2 2/3, I think, and got an 8. Yeah, he got an 8-out save, and that was amazing. Couldn't have asked for anything more from Aroldis. Game 6 rolls around. It's all Cubs. Josh Tomlin gave up a lot of runs that game, and Jake Arrieta pitched probably better than he did in game 2. Honestly, if you ask me, he pitched better in game 6 than he did in game 2. Yes, he gave up 2 runs in game 6, but his stuff was there. He was throwing 97. That's something you don't see much from Jake Arrieta anymore. Yes, he did in 2015, but let's think about this. He was floating with a no-hitter through 90 pitches through 5 innings, and you're not going to get through much more than that after 90 pitches. Even if you have a no-hitter, I would still be kind of weary about it. But he did pitch. If you honestly really want to break it down, he did pitch better in game 5 or game 6 than he did in game 2. He gave up 2 runs in 5 2/3. I honestly didn't think that he was going to be taken out after that. I thought if we could have give him 7 solid, because he was at 100 pitches after 5 2/3. So I think maybe it was probably about the time that you either give him that one last out, or you just give him the ropes. And Joe Madden gave him the ropes, and that was a good call, because the Cubs ended up winning the game. They had a big lead at that point, so you just don't really want to risk it, especially since it's all hands on deck for Game 7. Hendricks versus Kluber. And I was thinking to myself, if we get to Kluber early, the Cubs have a chance. And Hendricks is going to give us his best stuff, because Kyle Hendricks, in my opinion, through this postseason, he has proven he is the Cy Young winner of the 2016 season. He was the best pitcher in all of baseball. And I know you shouldn't take postseason play into account for what he did in the regular season, but let's think about it for a second. Kyle Hendricks was phenomenal all season long, from start to finish. And he, under the biggest moments, this guy went out there and dominated every single time. He is a lot like Greg Maddux, and he doesn't need velocity to be effective, and that's amazing. And he throws his fastball at 88. I mean, it's all about location, and he's absolutely correct. You don't need hard stuff to be effective. And his curveball, his changeup, his cutter, fastball, they're all really good, well located pitches, and he pitched so well. Kluber just looked tired in Game 7. He was exhausted. And Miller and Shaw and I'm forgetting his name now. But those two pitchers there, at least those two from what I remember, those guys really came through and gave the Indians a chance for when Aroldis Chapman came in. Because Aroldis Chapman, Game 7, I was kind of skeptical about because of what happened in Game 6. They brought him in too early, and yeah, they were asking him to get 4 outs, and he couldn't even get out of that 8th inning without giving up 3 runs. And he looked tired. I mean, the velocity wasn't there for him, and his location was not there. And do I think Joe Madden could have used it a little bit differently? Yes. I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing of bringing him in that early. Asking him to do more than 3 innings or 3 outs is just, it can be a little taxing on him, and it showed in Game 7. Luckily, he was able to go through the bottom of the 9th and go 1, 2, 3 just like that and get 3 outs. And then top of the 10th is Ben Zobrist, and after the rain delay, I think, yeah, it really kind of just leveled the playing field a little bit, because top of the 10th, Ben Zobrist with a huge double down the line. Like, that was such a close play. Michael Martinez he was just a few inches off of that play, and if he would have got to that ball, who knows? It would have been a completely different ball game. Miguel Montero came in big too, hitting that single to left field. He's got some good opposite field hitting. As much as he hasn't been productive this year as far as his batting average, but he has been, whenever you need him to get a clutch hit, he's going to give you that clutch hit. He did it 2 times this postseason. Bottom of the 9th, though, I did trust C.J. Edwards to get the 3 outs, but Rajai Davis, that clutch home run he had to tie the game, and then the other clutch hit he had, that was another one that really set the tone. And that's when you have to, I was in favor of Mike Montgomery just going in there and shutting the door. Mike Montgomery may have been the best solution to get those 4 outs to begin with. Because Mike Montgomery has been lights out this postseason as well. Yes, he gave up, I think, 4 runs this entire postseason, but he's been really good. He had a little bit of a slow start, but he's been really good this postseason. And, man, just one hell of a World Series. Indians, yes, it was. I'm not gonna make the meme. This was one that I'm more happy about the Cubs winning. I'm not that kind of guy who's gonna be all about, oh, the Indians blew 3. Let's get that shit out of here. That's so stupid. It's immature for really. I don't like it, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm all about celebrating my team and the fact that they won a World Series for the first time in 108 years. Yes, it came at the expense of a 3-1 lead that the Indians had, but sometimes it's just better to pretty much just do it however you can, And let's not, if you want to pull it that route, just go back to 2004 when the Yankees blew a 3-0 lead against the Red Sox. Let's not forget about that. And so, it all comes full circle. The Cubs are World Series champions, and Ben Zobrist deserved that MVP. I don't care what anybody else says, whether it could have been Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, because Chris Bryant, I think, could have been a good debate, considering that he woke up the team in those last few games with those couple home runs that he had. Grandpa Ross, I'm gonna miss Rossi. Grandpa Rossi, he was such a good player, and holy cow, just amazing. This Cubs team, of all players on this team, they all deserve it. This team is young, they're talented, and they're gonna be good for years to come. People are gonna ask me, Sin, now that the Cubs won the World Series, what are you gonna do now? Well, I want another World Series. I want another one. Why not? Let's make this a trend. So what? Let's make it happen. And I think next year too, it's gonna be a lot more interesting, because I think the Indians and Cubs could meet again in the near future in the World Series once again. I don't know about next year, but maybe the year after, and until they start to fall off, because the Indians have a really good squad as well. Francisco Lindor is one of the best shortstops in the game. Corey Kluber is one of the best pitchers in the game. He's probably going to win. I think, isn't he up for the American League side as well? He's just really good. Their bullpen is stacked. It was Cody Allen that I was thinking about. But yeah, just think about that. These two teams could meet again in the World Series. I think it could happen. And whether it's the Indians or the Cubs that come out on top, that's yet to be determined. These two teams, I feel like, will meet again in the future. I don't know about next year, but look out for it. These two teams are really good. And the Cubs, man, it's going to be interesting where they go. For right now, I'm just happy they won. It still hasn't sunk in yet after almost 24 hours since it happened. It hasn't completely sunk in. But congrats. Thank you, Indians fans, for having such a great fan base and giving us a run for our money. And you guys have a great team. And like I said, I'm gracious in victory and defeat. If the Cubs would have lost, I would have been heartbroken, considering the fashion that it would have been in. But the Indians had a really good team, and they got some players, man. But anyway, I'm done rambling. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I like discussion. Maybe I could do more videos like this where I just talk about certain sports topics in the news. I know I haven't been making a lot of sports commentaries lately, but I kind of want your guys' opinion on how you guys feel about the Cubs winning the World Series. I honestly think it's good for baseball, considering how much grief that the Cubs fans have gone through. Just ask me. I'm a Cubs fan myself. We've been through a lot. I can't say for a lot of those older people that are like 80 plus or like 40 plus. They're way older than I am. I'm 26, and I can't speak for those who are older than me. I saw videos on Twitter just like this, about this 81-year-old man who literally jumped out of his seat. So happy. It put a smile on my face. It makes you want to, as a Cubs fan, it brought a tear to my eye. It was so good, and this is so good for sports. It just had to happen sometime, But I'm done rambling. Thank you guys for watching, and fly the W, go Cubbies.